Okay, right now we're dealing with the history of social welfare systems. Social welfare systems can be broken down into three areas. You got your residual, that which is considered to be temporary. Basically, after you exhaust all of your remedies, family, friends, money in the bank, whatever, then we'll try to help you for a short period of time. You have your institutional, that is which is considered long term. You don't have to go really jump through any hoops. It's available to anybody. And you have your developmental, which is basically a happy medium. Now, you have people who stay on one side of the fence. They feel that, society is weakened by charity. Therefore, nobody really necessarily needs these handouts. America is built on hard work, sweat, and tears. And if you don't got it, you're just lazy. That's a real strong concept for some people. Of course, until things like the bubonic plague hit them in England, or the Great Depression hit them here. Then maybe it's not a character flaw. Maybe anybody could be messed up. Maybe we might need to help more people out. Then you have those who feel, everybody needs a helping hand. It doesn't matter who they are. People are not necessarily lazy. Everybody wants to do good, be decent, and they hand out whatever they can hand out. And these groups don't necessarily make you go through a means test. They don't see if you're qualified to be poor, if you're really truly needy. And to an extent, that's pretty good too, because a lot of people need that assistance. Myself personally, I kind of lean in the developmental stage. Now, I say that because it can be flexible, be swift and changeable. You go through hard times and you're working, but you really can't make all the ends meet. You got real sick and you missed a lot of time, and now your kids need the money, and you make too much money to get food stamps, but you need to buy food. So yeah, a food bank. Go ahead and get that. You need that. There's not being lazy because you're using that. Or I understand that maybe you may need temporary assistance for needy families, TANF, TANF, I guess how you can say it. But maybe you may need that, and that's not meant for you to be on it for life. But yeah, go ahead, go for that. Or you go into a situation where you're truly unable. You may have been injured. Um, the head of the household may have been injured or died. Something strong as that. You may have had a child who was born disabled. And while those who don't go through that type of struggle don't look at it like that's an issue, medical bills and being able to take care of that child, I mean, all those are all unseen um, expenses, unseen expenses. So for the most part, yeah, you need some help with that. And what makes you lazy or less than a person to get that? Now, historically, we know that this country leaned more towards the Elizabethan laws, right? And the Elizabethan laws were more on the residual level. Get yours, step it up. And they historically became that because that's where the Protestant mindset was of the colonizers over here as well. However, prior to the Calvinist movement and Martin Luther, you had those who followed the canon law, and they were still Catholic. And because Catholicism believes in community, commune, they were more on an institutional level then. Now, I hate to get into the whole aspect of ideology, but they say, I'll kind of laugh and take it with a grain of salt, but they say that the early Christians were truly felt that it was their higher power, their God, that said that you should always give. Part of the Ten Commandments, Judaic law, and Islamic law as well. They came after both of them. They said you have to give a charity or a zakat. So on these three, the Judeo-Christian Islamic perspective, we can say historically, from an ideological aspect, it was about making sure that no person suffered. Of course, we know that historically we can go beyond, well beyond, the timelines given by those who follow those particular religions. In fact, in a book that I just read recently, they had went into Egypt and they spoke of the Egyptian aspect of socialism, so to speak. And everyone had, at a time, they saved during the times of plenty to make sure during droughts or when the river was low, everybody had. Of course, my problem with that aspect within the book was you're speaking from a Greco-Roman colonization. So the historical perspective is somewhat slanted. All right, but I don't want to go too far into a history lesson because it makes me look apparently biased. But bottom line is, I don't feel that you should handicap anybody by constantly giving because it is part of character building to go through somewhat of a struggle. I'm living proof of that. Yet and still, I truly don't feel that you should let anyone suffer. I mean, even the Marines say no man left behind, right? Let him lay there and bleed. He'll be all right. He'll survive. We're going to get on that plane. Nah, they go back and get there. So if it's good enough for the Marines, it should be good enough for the people who they protect, right? Just a little food for thought. But where I stand is developmental. I think give anybody as much as they need until they don't need it. Not until they don't want it, but until they don't need it. All right? That's my perspective.